Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast, the official podcast of Football Italia. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima Tavalli. On today's show, we will review the weekend Serie A action. Inter win yet again. Can anyone stop them from winning Scudetto? Milan win as well with Niclas Fullkrug, the hero, with his first Milan goal. Napoli won, but it came at a cost as they suffered two more injuries. Juventus fell to a shock defeat at Cagliari, and they've responded by trying to sign Jean-Philippe Mateta from Crystal Palace. Roma won, but there was also some really, really sad news as Fiorentina president Rocco Commisso passed away. We will be remembering him later in the episode in Baggio of the week. And we'll also preview the Champions League action, and we'll have our usual Baggio, Premface, and Serie A of the week, one of the greatest ever Serie ASs. So stick around for that. And if you want to support the Italian Football Podcast, receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including free Monday review show, our weekly Q&A episode where we answer all the questions from our patrons, plus the Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much, much more. Then go to patreon.com/TIFP, become a subscriber for just $3.99 a month. You can also watch our free episodes and shorter clips on YouTube, and you can become a patron on YouTube memberships at youtube.com/@itafootpod. You can also sign up to be a paid subscriber on Spotify. So wherever you consume us, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, we'd really appreciate if you give us a follow, give us a 5-star rating, like us, comment, because all of that, it really helps us to grow. And if you've not already done so, do follow us on our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Okay, let's get into today's show. So we'll start off with the football. We'll get to Rocco Commisso later on in the show. Inter against Udinese, or Inter at Udinese. Inter win 1-0. Another dominant win. They're looking absolutely fantastic. Can anyone stop Inter from winning the Scudetto, Nima?
Well, yes, of course they can. They're only 3 points clear of Milan, and they've got a derby left to play in which they haven't beaten Milan in almost over a year. So for sure, it's far from a done deal. But the thing that is good speaking for Inter is that I read a stat somewhere. I haven't had time to verify it, but there was a stat that said that the last 5 times Inter have won the Scudetto, they've won 16 matches out of the first 21 opening games. And that's exactly what they've done now. They've won 16 matches over the opening 21 in the first 21 games of the season. So that's good. That's very, very good. Another thing that I think speaks for Inter is actually that Inter now have the most clean sheets in the Serie A, 11. Inter have only conceded 17 goals over 21 matches, which the defense has been an issue, and it continues to be an issue, but still only 17 goals, which, if I'm not mistaken, puts them equal with Milan as well. And other teams. So the only team, the best defense in the league is, of course, Roma on 12, which we'll get to. I still don't understand how you can lose 7 games when you've only conceded 12 goals. But I'll leave that aside for now. But yeah, Milan have conceded 16. Napoli have 17. Inter have 17. Juve have 17. Como have 16, who have a game left to play. I think they're playing Lazio. The issue is, of course, that
if I can just come in on that and add to those stats that you've just said there. It's not just the real stats; it's also the underlying stats are emphatically in Inter's favour. It's actually crazy if you look at the underlying stats. Their expected points +9 on Milan, +11 on Napoli. Expected goals +10 over anyone else in the league. The expected goals against, the best in the league. Chance creation, best in the league by an absolute mile. Statistically, the underlying stats, Inter are way ahead of anyone else. And as we've all said on this pod for many years, the underlying stats generally over the course of the season. You get the odd exception every now and again, but generally, 90 times, 99 times out of 100, that team will win the league. So if this continues as it is now, Inter are going to win the league. There's no doubt about that, if this continues as it is.
And the reason why that is because the way that they smash every other team. I mean, if you look at it now, they lost to Udinese, but they beat them now. And they did so convincingly away. And that's usually a place where Inter struggle. But yeah, if you continue to win against everyone else, and it kind of makes this a little bit more impressive in the sense that, okay, if you lose 3 games to your main rivals, but you beat everyone else, then you will win the league. There's a very, that makes it very impressive in the sense that there's no margin of error. There's no room for error. And so far, Inter have been perfect in those other games. And that's, that does speak for them. But again, we do have a title race. I think Inter fans and everyone else should do well to remember that fact. Inter are playing really well. They weren't so good against Lecce. They were better against Udinese. And for me, again, it comes down to the depth. Inter have 4 really good strikers. They have more attacking depth now than they've had in many, many years. You could, since Conte's years, I'd say, in terms of quality. But you could even go further back than that. I'm not saying they're as good as these players I'm about to mention, but in terms of depth, I don't remember Inter having this much depth since the treble, when they had Eto'o, Milito, Pandev, and a young Arnautovic and Balotelli. I'm not saying these players are as good as any of them, absolutely not, but I'm just talking in terms of depth. And I think we saw that again this week. Pio Esposito, goal and an assist. This is his first season in the Serie A, and he continues to be decisive. He continues to use his body in the right way. He continues to win important challenges, nail the ball high up the pitch with his back against the goal. Scored a really good goal against Lecce in how he built that up for Lautaro. Could have scored another one as well, just missed by the ball, the shot just missed by a whisker. And in this game, he against Udinese, he put in a real shift. And Boni, who I think is, I said it in our January mid-season review, I think he's been the signing of the season. He's been absolutely brilliant. Maybe not had a slight dip in form now, but he's still very good. Thuram and Lautaro, who continues to come good against the small teams. It's funny because regardless of whatever narrative is on social media, the fact of the matter is that we used to discuss on this pod, and many people used to discuss on, pundits and journalists and experts used to discuss that. Well, Lautaro, he would only ever come good in big matches, but not so much in the small games. This season, I think he's become even. It's a little bit other way around. He doesn't score in the big matches, but he is decisive in the in the smaller matches. And this again ties back to my original point of a couple of seasons now, that this is truly Lautaro Martinez's Inter. As goes Lautaro, as goes Inter. So it's all really looking good for Inter right now. But this is the crunch point, where they've won these easy games. Now for Inter, it's Arsenal midweek, Pisa at home, Dortmund, Cremonese. And I think we'll know if Inter are 5-6 points, as I said, after that Cremonese game, clear of everyone else, of Milan, then I think we can say that they are champions elect of Italy. There's no doubt about that, because I think it'll be difficult for anyone to catch them. But
it's looking good.
Because Milan have Roma coming up, Bologna away. Both of those games are away. They've got they have a tough couple of games coming up, and if Inter can win and Milan drop points, I think we're looking at a situation where the champions elect of Italy already by February.
Yeah, definitely, but it's the smaller teams that Milan have struggled with. As we've spoken about a lot on this pod, I laid out the games last week's show, and almost slipped up again in another small game, a small team against Lecce. It took them until, well, just like Inter, it took them until the 76th minute. I think Inter scored against Lecce in the 77th minute for them to finally break the deadlock against Lecce. We've seen all season that whilst Inter just steamroll through the smaller teams with their attacking firepower, there isn't no one else in the division's able to do that. And that's why I think Inter are such strong favourites to win the Scudetto. And we saw that again in this game with Milan. They did finally get the goal. Not a good first half from Milan, but the second half they did create lots of opportunities. It shouldn't have taken them as long as it did for them to finally score. But it was Niclas Füllkrug who came off the bench to score the winner with a header. Great assist from Salamakers. We kind of saw why they signed him, to be that kind of box threat that Milan just don't have. They don't have anyone that they can put crosses in that has that the game to win those kind of duels and score headers and everything. So yeah, that's why they signed him. But what was also so impressive was that Fullkrug played with a broken toe in this game. And I don't know if you saw his interview after the game where he was like, I'm German, us Germans are tough. And it just got me thinking, like, where does Füllkrug rank among the toughest German footballers ever? I mean, there has been some really tough Germans, hasn't there, over the years? I mean, we were thinking of, the first one that comes to mind is probably Stefan Effenberg. I mean, he was a tough bastard, wasn't he, Nima? And probably
He was.
Harald Schumacher, would you say?
Yeah, Schumacher for me is just he's the number one that comes up in my head when I think of that the German saying that if you put all German footballers in a burlap sack and hit that sack with a baseball bat, you will hit someone who deserves it. Like, in the sense that they my German relatives have told me that. That's the saying they say in Germany. But yeah, there's been quite a few, but Schumacher definitely embodies that. But there's been so many. I remember Jürgen Kohler, Jens Jeremies was a nutter. Oliver Kahn. I mean, it was Mehmet Scholl who said, "I'm scared of two things: God and Oliver Kahn." You have Briegel.
Hans-Peter Briegel. I think Maradona said of Hans-Peter Briegel that he had creatures growing out of his muscles, that they were so big. Like it was like the guy. I've never seen anybody with bigger muscles than Hans-Peter Briegel. Maybe like Roberto Carlos. Maybe. I mean, that guy was. I think his nickname was Iron Man or Iron Lungs or something like that. And yeah, he was tough. Michael Ballack was a great footballer as well, but I wouldn't want to fight Michael Ballack. I mean, he was a unit, wasn't he? He was.
Yeah, and just even players like Andy Bremer were very strong, very, they stood their ground. I mean, no, Germany has produced some difficult players through the years.
Yeah,
for sure.
Probably the toughest ever. And it could be the perpetrator and the victim of this. It's probably the most famous. I don't know if anyone's seen this. It's the most famous German challenge or tackle that there's ever been. It was in 1981, and it was committed by Norbert Siegmann of Werder Bremen against Ewald Lienen, if I pronounced that right. It was during a Bundesliga match, and Siegmann just threw himself into this challenge on Lienen. It was a disgusting challenge, like 2-footer, threw himself in there, studs up, and he caused a 10-inch wound in Lienen's thigh with his studs, and you could instantly see like Lienen is like in agony straight away. You can actually see it from the faraway camera, the big gash in his thigh that's completely opened up. You could see the muscle, you could see the red everything. You could see everything, basically, the tissue. And it was disgusting. What's incredible is that if you watch the incident, is that Lehnen, instead of, I mean, if that happened to anyone normally, especially if it happened today, you'd probably pass out in agony. He actually got up, right, Lehnen, and he stormed, not towards the player that done it, but he stormed towards the manager of Werder Bremen, who at the time was, and I think everybody remember him, Otto Rehhagel. Do you remember him? He won the
of course
European
I know.
Championship with Greece in 2004. And he went and absolutely blasted him because apparently a few minutes earlier, Rehhagel had demanded that his players put in harder tackles than they did. So literally a few minutes later, this guy does this tackle, opens up his leg. And so, I mean, it just shows how footballers have changed. Lehnen required 23 stitches, but he returned to training 17 days later, which is just insane. Like you have to see that, like everybody that's watching this, go on YouTube this instant. It's all over YouTube. You can see it. Have a look at the guy's leg when he done it. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like he's been on a medic's table and the doctors basically dissected his leg up. Like it's unbelievable. And the guy just got up, charged after the manager, like was going ballistic, like as if, and he was playing 17 days later. And it just shows, yeah. So I think Ewald Lehnen has to be up there for the toughest man.
I remember the fact that you want to, when you're doing this segment, it reminds me of the England's World Cup 98 like remake song of the 96 It's Coming Home. The same people who did the 96 Euros song, they did a remake of that for the World Cup in 98. And in that video, they're playing a like pickup game against Germans, and every single German player has the name and number of Stefan Kuntz on the back. And obviously, if you read the word Kuntz in English, it says something else. and I remember that because it made me laugh. That basically playing against Germany is playing against 11 Kuntz, which made me laugh a lot.
That's right. Yeah, that is right. So yeah, different times back then. I don't think even the German footballers, although Füllkrug is certainly of the older type, let's say. And even if you look at him, I mean, he has. I mean, I can't speak. I don't have great teeth, but like if you see my front teeth are quite big, but he has bad teeth.
No,
I mean, oh my God!
It's almost become a thing. Yeah, but it's become like a hallmark of it. He was asked this really, really stupid, silly question by Carlo Pellegatti in his unveiling. If Milan win the Scudetto, will you put a gold tooth there? And I don't know what. And it's typical of Pellegatti asking silly questions. And Fullkrug, handled it really well. But no, he's made basically.
It exposed that he's the old school. Like, and most footballers will get their teeth done, they'll get them whitened, they'll get them straightened. They'll do like David Beckham basically, and just get everything done. And he's just, I don't give a shit. He
really doesn't.
This is who I am. I'm a tough German, old school German. So yeah. And I think it'll be important for Milan because they need that. They need that for sure. So that's Milan. Just before we move on, I want to ask you about what did you make of the Cesc Fabregas versus Max Allegri rows? I'm sure you have something to say about this. Because after Milan beat Como 3-1, Fabregas publicly it was quite critical in a way. He said that based on the way the game went, Como would beat Milan 8 times out of 10 if the game was replayed. And Allegri replied that Fabregas was showing a lack of respect towards Milan, his players, the staff, and everything. Basically said that you can't say things hypothetically after the game, especially when you've lost. So, what's your view on this? Like, what Fabregas said?
Well, there's two elements to this. First of all, that game is one of the best games in the Serie A I've seen this season, Como Milan, in terms of individual skill, in terms of tempo, in terms of the individual quality we saw. Nico Paz was unplayable. Mike Maignan is the reason, however, that Milan won. because his saves were just surreal. And Como battered Milan. There's no doubt about that. But because of what Mike Maignan did, Milan were able to hold on, and then moments of magic by Leao, but above all, Adrien Rabiot, is the reason they turned this game on its head, and they win it. So that's true. So that part of it is true. However, I have had enough of these shitty Shatta, Kules, La Masia wankers whinging like little bitches about how football is supposed to be played in a certain way. I have had enough of it. It's been 40 years of listening to these little children whinging about how they have a God-given right to winning football, and everyone who doesn't play like them doesn't deserve to win football games, and blah, blah, blah. Just shut up. If you look into if you're talking about unsportsmanlike behavior, there is no more culture, in my opinion. There's no more culture of unsportsmanship than that comes from Barcelona and Catalonia and the shitty Shatta wankers. The last 40 years, shitty Shatta wankers, and it's absolutely exhausting to listen to. So I'm glad he lost. I'm really happy that he lost. I hope he leaves the Serie A and fucks off back to Barcelona, where he belongs, and can stay there and whinge for the rest of his career, and then go to Arsenal and do what Monsieur taught him to do, and whinge and bitch about how football is only supposed to be played in a certain way. I can't stand it. I cannot stand this attitude of theirs. Milan won because Milan were efficient. If that's football. You don't have a God-given, inalienable right to win matches because you possession wank. I'm sorry, but it's exhausting. Absolutely exhausting to listen to. It's been 4 decades of listening to this shit. It's tiring. And if you know anything about the history of Barcelona and how they have behaved through the years, you know that they have absolutely no standing whatsoever to complain about anything, ever, about anyone being unsportsman or
Google's Fuentes blood bags. But yeah, but yeah, that's brilliant, Nima. That was prime Nima. Going off rubbish. I'll be honest with you. I do agree. I do agree that and I think one of my criticisms of modern football, forget about Barcelona, is that there's not enough diversity in the way that teams play. Everybody tries to play the same way. It's all build up from the back, from goal kicks, from the goalkeeper, try and work your way through the press, and all kind of like short passing. So that the better team has possession of the ball all the time, and the weaker team just sits back and defends, because then they can't do it as well as the team they're playing against. And it's just a bit, everything is the same. All the players are the same. We're gonna come up to Paulo Dybala, where I want to make this point about Paulo Dybala.
No, I'm tired about this holier than thou, my shit doesn't stink attitude. That they seem to think they've got some sort of divine right as to how football should be played, and anyone who deviates from that is cheating, essentially, which is hilarious given their history. I'm sorry. But go and rewatch the 1986 European Cup semi-final. Go and look into what they did to IFK Gothenburg before the game, during the game, after the game. The Italian referee that if you ask Gothenburg players, which I did when I met Jonny Ekström many times, and he said he has no doubt that the Italian referee was bought for that game. No doubt. I mean, you want to talk about doping convictions. Look at Guardiola and why he was acquitted. Look at, like you said, Google that other thing you mentioned. Look at the financial levers. I'm sorry, but these holier than thou little shitty Shatta possession wanker dwarves can piss off. Had it.
This will be good viewing. Let me just say that back. I'm never bad. I love you.
I've had enough of it. Enough of it. It's like, it's one thing that you have your ideology. You know, I remember Luis Felipe Scolari in that Greece, when Greece won the Euros, and they lost because he was the coach of Portugal in both of those games, and they lost the opening game and the last game, right? And he was asked going into the final, about okay, well, you guys play attacking football, Greece plays anti-football and whatnot. And his answer stuck with me, and I have so much respect for that man. He said something along the lines of, well, if defensive teams play defensive football, it's up to us, the attacking teams, to unlock their defenses. Exactly. Full stop. Finished. Done. And that's what this is. But they act as if everyone who doesn't play football like them is cheating. And it's hilarious when that pot is calling the kettle black. So thank you very much.
I've got nothing to add other than I never thought the day would come, having grown up in the 90s where we, like, me personally, but like Italian footballing culture used to make fun of the way, for example, the English culture, which was at the time very much behind in many different ways, but certainly philosophically, the kind of, the long ball, 4-4-2, long ball, that style of play. Whereas the continental culture, certainly the Italian, which was way ahead, was, technical, playing football. It wasn't shitty shatter, as you said, but it was more ball playing, let's say, playing football, rather than just, get it up the pitch, put crosses in, set pieces. I never thought the day would come where now I am starting to side with that style of football. I mean, this season, it's got that bad that I've actually been like, you know what? I'm actually welcoming long throws. Like, we've seen long throws starting to come back. We've started to see ever so occasionally, but it's not, instead of trying to, work up from the back, from the goal kick, coming through the press, actually just go long. I don't know why more teams don't do that. Why, instead of trying to beat, for example, you're playing against Como, who obviously the way that they play, they're going to press you high up. They're going to try and win the ball. I don't know why more teams don't try and just do a long ball up to a Füllkrug, up to a and try and do that. I know football's changed. I know that now, certainly with the offside rule, it makes it more difficult. Teams defend really high. They push up, they make the pitch smaller. They've got the sweeper keepers. It means that kind of game, it's more difficult to. But I don't know why teams don't do it, rather than just falling into the trap of trying to play out from the back, losing the ball high up the pitch, and then conceding because you're trying to play the other team, the better team, at their own game. So, I didn't think the day would come where I'm actually like an advocate of Sean Dyche.
It's exhausting.
Sean Dyche football. I've become more Sean Dyche than shitty shatter.
Yeah, no, but I understand that, and it's because it's exhausting to listen to, and all of this. I mean, remember when Cruyff? This all comes from Cruyff and the Dutch arrogance. All of that's patient zero to this nonsense. It started in the 70s, and their total football about this is the way football shall be played, and anyone who deviates from that is, I don't know, evil and whatnot. And it's actually quite exhausting. It's arrogant, it's exhausting, it's condescending, it's pretentious, and it's just shut up. Just shut up.
Nima has coined the new term, shitty shatter.
It's actually Sunit. It's actually Sunit.
Oh, of course it was Sunit. Of course it was him.
Our patron Sunit. Yeah, it's Sunit. Yeah.
Of course.
I can't claim. No, but it's tiring to listen to, and especially when you know anything about the history of that club, and that's why I despise Barcelona with a fiery passion, as has been evident in this episode.
Oh, yes. I successfully triggered Nima this morning. That was my plan all along. Rob's hands. No. Right, Napoli. Napoli win. Didn't play well at all. 0.5 XG in this game. Sassuolo had double the shots, double the XG. Napoli did get the win, but it come at a cost. 2 more injuries. Rachmani, Politano, but Rachmani in particular, that's a big blow, especially going into the Champions League in midweek, where they have to win or they're probably out. I can only just repeat what I've said so many times. This is on Antonio Conte and his staff and the methods of Antonio Conte, which we've seen throughout his career, that when Napoli are playing 3 times a week, his methods don't work, and it's obviously causing these injuries.
I don't know if I agree with that.
It's there. It's there.
I don't know
to
if I
see.
agree with that, because his career, he's never had this many injuries in his career. Like, I don't remember him at Chelsea or Juve or Italy or Inter having these problems. I think there is a problem at Napoli, but in terms of injuries, no doubt about that. But blaming that on Conte's training methods when they've worked for a decade suggests to me that there's something else. There's something else that's going wrong here, and I don't know what that is. I couldn't tell you, but I don't think we can just blame that on Conte's track record. You can blame Conte's track record for not being able to succeed and deliver results playing 3 games a week. There's no discussion about that. And people often mistake that with that he can't do it in Europe. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with the fact that he's got to play more than 1 game a week, and then he can't prepare and he can't do that. That's one thing. But the injuries, I can't blame on him, because we have a decade which suggests does not see that at all. He didn't have this problem at Juve. He didn't have this problem.
To be fair, listen, having made your point, you might be right there to an extent. Although this season there has been, the senior players have earlier on in the season gone to Conte and asked for them to reduce the workload.
Well, probably because they're not following
them.
Yeah, but that's because they're not living the way that Conte wants them to live. Like, you have to remember who Conte is. Conte is Marcello Lippi's son, football son, in the sense that when the way you live as a footballer it's Spartan. You know, you have to live, eat, sleep, shit, breathe exactly that way. You have to dedicate your entire life the way that he belonged to that generation. Why Maldini was able to live and play at a high level until the age he did. Costa Curta, Bergomi, like, that's the generation he belongs to. That's how when you're a footballer, you sacrifice, you work hard, you give everything 24 hours a day. I'm not sure that this group of players does that. And I don't think it's not just this group of players, this generation. I don't think they live their lives that Spartan. I'm sorry, I don't think they do. And I don't blame them, because, for goodness sakes, life is not a military boot camp the way that these guys.
No, I think with Conte, it's always been that his methods are only sustainable for a certain period of time. It's as simple as that. Players will buy into it for a year, 2 years max. Any more than that, and it's too much. You can only live that kind of life with that kind of intensity, that kind of workload for so long, and then the body, probably more the brain, can't take it. Can't take it anymore. It's too much, and that's why for a year, always first seasons, he always has amazing impact, because the players buy in and they're all on board. But then after a while, it just becomes too much, and maybe you're right. Certainly when it comes to serious injuries, ACLs, Conte hasn't had that much of an not like the serious injuries we've had, but this has been and they haven't been ACLs, have they? But they've been serious injuries like the ones that.
Well, we also have to remember that he's used to working with Pintus, and Pintus isn't there. Pintus is probably Alex Pintus is probably the best athletics coach or preparatore in all of football. And he's no longer
back to Real Madrid. I think Florentino Perez has called him back to Madrid now.
Yeah. No one will let Pintus go, because they know that the teams that have Pintus barely get any injuries. So he knows what he's doing. I think it's got to do with that. I think that's part of it as well. But it could be lots of factors. As I said, it's pretty much all of the above. But when it comes to Conte and his training methods, well, they have worked in the past. Maybe this group of aging players can't deal with it, but for reasons that I've already
when outlined. You say that it's worked, you're saying it's worked fitness injury wise. It certainly hasn't worked conditioning wise. That's no doubt about it.
No, because nobody can play at that intensity, and he doesn't like to rotate either. I mean, when we were talking about Barella being out of form and has he declined, well, I think a big part of that is Antonio Conte driving him into the ground for 2 years, and then of course COVID came and he's never really recovered. Well, anyway, the larger point is Napoli are on the ropes here. They really are. They're on the ropes. They're not playing. We've seen them in this game. They weren't good. They didn't really deserve to win. But physically, look at the number of injuries and the condition of the players that are still playing but are being overplayed. And they're now going into a must-win game midweek. Is it Copenhagen away?
which
and then they've got Juventus away, and then they got Chelsea at home, and then they got Fiorentina after that. I think that we might, as I said, 1st of February, 2nd of February. I think by then,
if Napoli are out, completely out of everything.
Completely out of the
not just the Scudetto, they could be out of Champions. I mean, their season could be
not the Coppa Italia.
Over. Yeah,
not the Coppa Italia.
Yeah, but they're. I mean, it's Coppa Italia is it's a Mickey Mouse Cup, but they could be out of the
Conte's never won that, by the way, and I think he would like to win that. And I think if he were to win the,
did he never win it at Juventus?
No, he won the Super Coppa. No, he never won it once with Inter. He never won it with Juve. Allegri won it 4 years out of 5, but Conte never won it. He won the Super Coppa 3 years in a row. Conte. So he's never won the Coppa Italia. He's only ever won the FA Cup.
Through it, so he could just concentrate on the league.
But I think that if he were to win the Coppa Italia and he looks at these 2 seasons at Napoli and he goes, well, I've won everything domestically in Italy with Napoli, which is which is a great feat. And I think he kind of, he comes out of it with his honor intact and his career relaunched. So because he is very much about honor and honor codes and stuff like that. So no, I think we'll know in about 11-12 days if Napoli are in the Scudetto race or not. I expect them to be out, to be honest. I think it'll be very difficult for them to come back in to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the team that are certainly out of the Scudetto race and really face a fight to get into the top 4 is Juventus after their loss at Cagliari. The first thing I would say on this is that they, just like the Lecce game, which they drew, Juventus did not deserve to lose this game. No. They had 22 shots to 3. They had 78% possession. That's the highest amount of possession since records began that a team in Serie A has ever had whilst losing. 18 corners to 1. Cagliari, if you're talking about anti-football, this was the biggest example of anti-football we've maybe ever seen in Serie A, which I'll get to in a minute, where I think Luciano Spalletti is absolutely right with what he said after the game, but we'll get to that in a second. Cagliari, their only shot on goal, they scored off a set piece. Questionable goalkeeping from Perin. There's been a video that's been doing the rounds of him where he seems to pull his hand away when he's diving for it, which is very, very strange. Maybe the ball was already going past him. He wouldn't have saved it anyway, but he puts his hand out and then he pulls it away. It's really bizarre. A lot of people, some people going further than that, especially if you look at his background with it. Anyway, don't want to go there with a case that went on few years ago. Very bizarre from Perin. What this game showed in terms of the short term is that Juventus are now 3 points behind Roma, and so they've got a real battle on their hands for that top 4. But bigger picture for the rest of this season in terms of are Juventus going to get into the top 4 is this game showed what Juventus are missing from the number 9. This game showed why Juventus are now trying to sign Jean-Philippe Mateta from Crystal Palace, because Juventus just don't have a 9 that's good enough. David is not good enough. Openda has been a joke. Jean-Philippe Mateta is the kind of striker that Juventus need. He's a beast of a striker. He's 6'4". He's powerful. He can hold it up. He can bring others into play. He's an aerial threat as well. Juventus at the moment are suffering because of their lack of a number 9. The game against Lecce where they completely dominated. This game where they actually didn't create that much, but a reason why they didn't create that much was because of their lack of a 9. Their number 9 is just providing nothing. The number 9, whoever it is, doesn't have the ability to create chances for themselves, to beat a man, to score a goal out of nothing. They're not linking up with their teammates particularly great. David is showed he's not good enough. That's why Juventus, despite already having 3 number 9s, if you include Vlahovic, whose contract is expiring, that's why Juventus, despite having 3 number 9s, they've already got 1 too many number 9s, considering they're only playing one striker. That's why Juventus are trying to sign another one. Juventus have identified that their problem, because Juventus are playing well now. Juventus are playing well. They're controlling games. They're pressing well. They're dictating games. Some games they're creating more chances than others. Other games, like this game, where Cagliari were very, very deep. Juventus were predictable in this game. It was basically Yildiz and nothing else. Yildiz was amazing. I think he created 8 dribbles in this game. He completed 8 dribbles in this match, which is incredible. But he didn't have the end product. He didn't finish his shots off. That's something I want to see more from Yildiz. I've said it before. When he cuts in from the left, if he wants to be top, one of the best players in the world, he has to put away those chances. When he goes past 2 men and then he shoots from the left towards the far left-hand corner of the goalkeeper, he needs to bury those, not hit the post, not put them wide, not put them over. He needs to bury those chances. That's where Yildiz can go to the next level. But it was only Yildiz. Yildiz was the only one doing anything in this game. That's where if you have a top number 9, the number 9 makes the difference. If Juventus had a better number 9 than a David or a Penda, I'm certain Juventus win this game. I'm certain Juventus win the Lecce game as well. And Juventus would be in a good position. So that's why they're going for Mateta, and that's why they need Mateta.
I agree with everything you said. I think it's a huge indictment on Juventus as a club as well. The fact that Vlahovic, Openda, David, and not a single one works, and they need to bring in another one. I think that's a huge indictment on the club as a whole, to be honest.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. But that also shows that if they really are, I mean, look, the way Mateta's not going to be easy to sign. Like Juventus have agreed terms with Mateta. If Mateta wants to join Juventus, personal terms have already been agreed, no problems. Mateta wants to join Serie A. He wanted to join Serie A last summer. Milan were also sort of like in negotiations with intermediaries last summer. So Mateta wants to move to Serie A. I'm sure if he doesn't move in this window, I think there's a good chance he could move to Serie A this summer, whether it's at Juventus, whether it's at Milan, whether it's at whoever. Mateta wants to move to Serie A. Personal terms, no problem. It's all agreed. Mateta wants to make the move. Juventus have already started. Juventus are ready to make a bid. If they haven't already made an official bid, they're ready to make an official bid. But Juventus value Mateta at around 30 million. We're talking probably a loan for around about 2 million plus an obligation to buy which will take it up to 30. So let's say 28. But Crystal Palace value Mateta around about, I think, certainly 40, 45, depending on who you listen to. And that's way too much for Juventus. Palace are also in complete crisis at the moment. They've just sold Mark Guehi to Man City. The manager is announced he's leaving, Glasner, and I don't know if you saw his press conferences. One of the greatest press conferences we've seen. He went absolutely ballistic at the owner. So I don't think he's going to last very long. I think he'll be out pretty soon. So the fans are angry. They're on a terrible run of form. So this isn't an easy deal to do. But if they do this deal, if Juventus sign Mateta, they bloody have to get this one right. He cannot be another flop, because if he's another David or another Openda, they can't have 4 expensive flops on their books. Or 3, because Vlahovic is going to leave at the end of the year. But they can't have 3 players going into the summer that they need to get rid of, or that aren't good enough, because then they're in a they're already in a mess financially, that they're in a real mess. Like you said, it's an indictment of the way this club's transfer policy has been executed and the planning for the club, the squad building over the last years, that they're in this situation when they need other players as well. You know, they need a midfielder. They're trying to sign a Vice Yildiz this window. They need a right wing back. There's lots of holes in the squad, yet they're going to sign a striker when they've got the numbers in that striker position, but the players just aren't good enough.
No, there's nothing more to add to that.
Yeah. So that is that really. It's a terrible defeat for Juventus. And
do you want to say something about Spalletti?
Yes, I do. And I agree with Spalletti completely, 100% here. This isn't about playing football the right way. This isn't about playing shitty shatter football. I have no problem with Cagliari playing a defensive game. They defended really well. Juventus couldn't break them down. That was also due to the number 9. No problem at all with Cagliari playing that way. what is a problem and what the football, something needs to be done about. This is a plague on modern football, especially Italian football. And it's making games unwatchable in Serie A. And it's terrible if we want to try and grow Serie A, but also football in the whole. This is why I think a lot of younger fans are not interested in football like our generation was when we were for their age, is the way, the amount of time wasting, but in particular, the way that this is a really growing trend. It's become an epidemic now. The way that defenders buy free kicks against attackers by just throwing themselves to the ground with just the slightest touch, or sometimes not even any touch at all. They throw themselves to the ground, and it's kind of an unwritten rule for referees that if a defender throws themselves to the ground under the attacker, especially when they're facing their own goal or in their final third or in their penalty area near to their own goal, automatically the referee just gives a free kick because they don't want to risk making a mistake, not giving that free kick, the opponent scoring a goal, and then they've made a mistake. So they don't take a risk. It's a psychological thing as well. You don't take the risk, you give the free kick. And this has become, it's a plague on football. It's making the games stop, start. And as Spalletti says, teams lose their rhythm, which is absolutely true. If the game is stopping every 30 seconds, not only is that terrible for the viewer, for the neutral, it's also unfair on the team that's trying to attack, trying to play the football, and the other team's just breaking their rhythm all the time. And then every time there's a free kick, it takes minimum 30 seconds to restart the game, because that's generally, if you time it, it's always around about 30 seconds. So you're wasting 30 seconds every single time you buy a free kick. And then, so you do that 10 times, that's 5 minutes you've wasted. Do that 20 times in the game, you've wasted 10 minutes just with the time in between the free kicks. Then you have to get the ball back. And in this game, 52 minutes and 43 seconds, the ball was in play in this game between Cagliari and Juventus. That's unacceptable. That's disgraceful. That is. Who wants to watch that? And I mean, not only is it unfair on Juventus, but who wants to watch that? Nobody. I don't want to watch that. I don't think any neutrals, but imagine people that we're trying to attract over to Serie A. Who wants to watch 40, do the maths, whatever the maths is there. Who wants to watch 38 minutes of the ball out of play in a match? They don't. So something needs to be done. I'm not sure what the solution is. I mean, I know it's been suggested in the past that maybe we say, right, we're going to play 60 minutes or 65 minutes or 70 minutes. And every time the ball goes out of play or every time there's a free kick, it's stopped. The watch is stopped. Maybe, I don't know. I know there's some that there's difficulties in doing that, especially if you've got TV involved and you've got programming. You need to know when the game is going to stop for the next program to come on. That's an issue. I think that's the biggest difficulty in that, because if there's a lot of stoppages, the game could go on forever. And if you saw the AFCON, Africa Cup of Nations final, I mean that game was absolutely insane. So there's that. And then the other solution is, what I would do is every time a defender throws himself to the ground, just play on. And then if they score from it, then you just come back and you go to VAR. But again, that's not easy to execute either, because, if you play on and they win the ball back, they might not necessarily score from it straight away, but they've got the ball back by winning the ball back unfairly. So I don't really know what the solution is, to be honest, but I know that this can't continue.
Look, I think the solution is that how Daniele Doveri interpreted the Inter Napoli game. That's how you do it. You make that interpretation of football the way to go forward. The interpretation of the laws of the game for fouls and whatnot. And if you have that, that's also good for the league, because then you have one level across the board as much as possible. I saw Serie A commentator Trevisani said that he thought Inter Napoli was probably the best game of the last 5 years in the Serie A, thanks to Doveri and the way that he interpreted fouls, because the game flowed. And I agree with that. I want that. I don't want to say not give fouls, because I think that's stupid. And I know how Rocky thinks. His solution to everything is reactionary knee-jerk reactions. I'd rather have an actual strategy here. I'd rather have say, no, we have to allow more. We can't have it like this. And I think the Doveri's interpretation of fouls and flow is how you move on.
Yeah, for sure. That's what we can do right away. There doesn't need to be any delay or any new rules made, or we can do that straight away. We can see if that helps, if that works. If it doesn't, then maybe we look at rule changes, because this can't continue like this. I mean, it wasn't a good game to watch at all. And there wasn't much of the game to watch. Barely more than half the game was played because of this. So so I agree with Spalletti. He's 100% right there. Roma, though, take advantage of Juventus' defeat. They now go 3 points clear of Juventus in the race for the fourth place. Roma were really good. Donyell Malen made his debut, impressed on his debut. He scored. He had a disallowed goal, and his link up with Paulo Dybala was great. And Spalletti was very happy with him. He said, "This is exactly what I want from my forward." So,
not Spalletti, Gasperini.
Gasperini, sorry, yeah, Gasperini. I mean, Spalletti could do with someone better at the 9 as well. But So I thought the link up between the pair, they had an instant chemistry there. And Paulo Dybala, who has struggled this season until now, was back to his best in this game. So maybe this will reignite Paulo Dybala. And all I would say about Paulo Dybala, coming back to the shitty shatter conversation that we had before, I love that word, is that enjoy Paulo Dybala while we still have him. That's what I'll say. Paulo Dybala said at the end of the game, this might be his last few months in Italian football. His contract ends at the end of the season. I don't think Roma are going to give him a new deal. Enjoy Paulo Dybala, because these footballers are now virtually extinct. There's no space for individual artists like Dybala who don't press. They're weak defensively. They're not the quickest, certainly over distance. Football today is full of AI robots trained. I mean, I was speaking about this at the cake shop the other day. How many, with an Arsenal fan actually, we were discussing the Inter versus Arsenal game. I did a predictions video with which will come out on social. I think everybody will enjoy it, where everybody gives their prediction of who's going to win out of Inter and Arsenal. And I interviewed an Arsenal fan, and they said, right, we're going to win the league this season. He goes, but Arsenal play bad football, and I'll be honest, I don't watch Arsenal, and I don't enjoy watching Arsenal, and I don't tune in. There's no players on that Arsenal team that I say, right, I'm going to tune in and watch Arsenal because there's a player I really, really want to watch. Whereas they're always 20, 30, 40 years ago, I would watch Arsenal and say, oh, I want to watch Arsenal because I want to watch Bergkamp. I want to watch Ian Wright. I want to watch, Paul Merson. I want to watch, these individuals, Liam Brady. I want to watch these individual players. How many games today, for any team, Nima, how many games today do you watch just to watch an individual player?
Not many. And you're absolutely right. The Paulo Dybala is a dying breed. And there's not very many that you watch just to watch, that you tune in just to watch that certain player play. Kenan Yildiz is one of those players. Yeah. I love watching him play. Nico Paz is one of those players. There's a few. Arda Güler as well. Lamine Yamal. But yeah, you're right. There's not players that you're like, ooh, like it's It's
even less, even fewer of them when you go to the big teams, the successful teams. There's a difference between playing, even with all respect to Roma, and even there doesn't seem to be any more space for him at Roma from next season. There's a difference. Even Nico Paz playing at Como, or even though I think he has the ability to play for big teams and he'll go back to Real Madrid, but the difference playing for Como and having that freedom and to be able to beat. So, someone like Dybala, enjoy him, because these players, the way that football's gone, there just isn't space for them. And I thought he was an absolute joy to watch as an individual in this game. Even his finish, just the way that he flicked it with the outside of his boot, such an artist, like a flick of the paintbrush, the way that he flicked that in, and his assist for Malen's goal that stood, and the way that he did also before they did this beautiful give and go with Malen, and then he just flicked it, like curled it this time, just went what, like, it's just that sometimes just the little things with Dybala, just beautiful. And you don't see that artistry with footballers because everybody's just trained and they're just, it's just, if you want to talk about shitty shatter, when you watch Pep Guardiola, I mean, Pep Guardiola's football.
Well, he's changed. Like that's
the thing. Even he's the most boring. Yeah, he's become the most boring to watch. The ball goes out to the wide players. They go for a look. They turn around. They pass it back. It goes to the other side. They turn around. They pass it back to the centre midfielder. They go to the right. The winger gets the ball. He turns around. They pass it. It's just so boring. It's so boring. Pep Guardiola football's become the most boring of all right now, which is bizarre because his Barcelona team in the Fuentes era was one of the most enjoyable teams to watch. They were absolutely amazing. But the way that they are now, it's Enjoy Paulo Dybala. That's my point. I'm saying
for sure.
For sure. Yeah. So Roma win. They've done some work on the transfer. Robinho Vaz has come in, big talent from Marseille as well. So it's looking good. Atalanta.
I just have to say on Roma before we move away. I've thought about this. I just don't understand. How can you concede 12 goals in 21 matches and lose 7 games? I just cannot in my head understand that. And that's the reason why Roma aren't in the Scudetto race, because 12 goals conceded is unbelievably good after 21 matches. And they should be, just by virtue of that, in the Scudetto race. But they're not, because they've lost 7 matches. And my brain, it doesn't compute. And again, I think they've also
overperformed their expected points and their expected goals against quite considerably. So they've been, can we say, lucky a little bit, but that might change now because they've got Malen in, and they might do some more transfer work. They've got some more firepower in attack, and the lack of firepower was certainly holding them back. So that could change, and that's why like Juventus, for example, will face a battle against Roma. But in this game in particular, they were very good. They were very dominant. Torino are a terrible team, though. I must say that, terrible team. Really disappointed with Torino this season. Very disappointed with Marco Baroni, who I liked and I thought was a little bit unfairly treated by Lazio in the last season to lose his job. But he's been big disappointment for me this season, and as have Torino. The whole club. Like, I don't just blame him. Like, even like the Mercato and the players, they've been a big disappointment for me. Right. Rest of the fixtures. So Pisa won, Atalanta won. A blow for Atalanta are now 9 or 10 points, I think, off the top 4. Probably too much for them to make up. I think. But yeah,
just a comment on this game. Just a comment on this game again. Atalanta, they created a lot, and this is a missed opportunity. But above all, but to be fair, they should be thanking Carnesecchi for saving a point, because Pisa created so many good chances.
Atalanta didn't deserve to win this game.
No, they didn't. And again, what I've been saying pretty much all season about Gilardino and Pisa. Pisa have the most draws in the Serie A, 11 draws. And they hit the woodwork, they force saves, and they just can't seem to win because the quality isn't there. Again, Gilardino has put them in such a good position. They're so well coached tactically. They're so well run as a team on the pitch in both phases. But the quality in attack just isn't there. And I don't think you can, when that happens, that's a qualitative issue, not a tactical or technical or psychological issue, in my opinion. And I think, after 21 games, we have to say that had Gilardino had another team in the Serie A taken a chance on Gilardino, he would have had them much higher up than they are. So.
Yeah, agreed. Pisa have always been in games all the time. When they've lost, it's usually been by a goal or sort of like last 20 minutes, they've fallen away and lost. Parma 0, Genoa 0. Talking about terrible. That Cuesta is the certainly the Arteta disciple, isn't he? He's like the when it comes to like the successor to the successor to the head terrorist. I'm trying to get my words out. Yeah, he is like he's the successor, isn't he? Like he is. But you know what? Fair play to him, because Parma have a team that's a relegation standard team, and they're well clear of the relegation zone. So I have to praise him, whether you like him or not. He's getting the results. Parma have a pretty good defense. Like they've defended well this season. They actually have a couple of defenders I actually quite like. Circati, the Aussie Italian. They've defended well this season. They're an abomination offensively, also partly due to the mentality, but also more so because they just don't have any good attackers. Just Pellegrino. So I don't blame Cuesta, mate. I think he's a pragmatic coach. He's looked at the players he's got. He's realised they've got no good attackers. And he's thought, right, this is the way to get us to stay up. And right now he's succeeding with a relegation standard team. So I can praise him. Well done. We'll see in coming seasons whether he has the ability to play a more offensive football when he has better players, better attackers. But right now he's doing what's required to keep them up. And right now they're staying up reasonably comfortably. Bologna 1, Fiorentina 2. Let's talk about this in Baggio of the week, but Fiorentina are out of the relegation zone, which is great.
I just want to mention on Bologna that their dreadful form continues. It's free fall, and it's an issue. It's an issue, and I know we've praised Italiano for a stellar calendar year of 2025. And now I feel the wheels have come off, and I think it's definitely time for him to leave Bologna in the summer. He can't take this any further. It doesn't look like they're going to invest in any meaningful way. So I think it's time for Italiano to leave Bologna.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, Monday games: Cremonese, Hellas Verona, big relegation game, and Lazio Como. Big opportunity for Como to get right back in that top four race after Juventus' defeat. Champions League and Europa League this midweek. Inter versus Arsenal, and Copenhagen versus Napoli on Tuesday. Juventus Benfica, Atalanta Athletic Bilbao on Wednesday, and Bologna Celtic and Roma Stuttgart on Thursday in the Europa League. Conference League the league phase is already completed. Fiorentina already through. So yeah, Inter versus Arsenal. Inter need a draw at least.
Minimum a draw. I mean, they ideally, ideally they need 4 points against Dortmund and Arsenal.
To get in the top 8.
Home to get into the top 8, and they are, they have Arsenal at home, so that's good. Arsenal have won every single one of their games, so they've all but secured that top spot to make them number 1 seed in the knockout stages. So you can't, and it's an Arsenal that are going for the quadruple. They're going to win everything, and they're the best team in England. They want to win the Premier League. They're in the final of the League Cup. We'll see once the FA Cup resumes how they are there. But yeah, winning the Champions League stage would give them an easier draw in the round of 16, and I think they're going for that. But Inter's chances are that Arteta rotates and can live with a draw, and maybe Inter can snatch it or something. But it's going to be difficult. Inter have put themselves in a really shitty position, and after starting really well, winning 4 games. But of course, the big match curse strikes again. Now, against Napoli, we saw a different Inter. Now, this is a moment for Inter to really... What a way to end that discussion than to beat Arsenal in the Champions League at home and put an end to that, talk of big match curses and whatnot. But it's going to be tight. Arsenal are very good. I think we can say that they're probably the best team in Europe right now. together with PSG and of course and other teams.
I think Bayern Munich.
Bayern as
Munich
well.
are having an amazing season. Yeah, PSG,
I've been picking Bayern Munich to win the Champions League for like 3-4 years now.
Yeah,
Kendrick
and then the one season where they actually look the best.
Yeah.
You don't pick them.
But no, it's because I really do like them. I really think Bayern Munich are a great side.
Harry Kane has just been ridiculous this season. Like, it's just obscene how good he's been this season. Yeah, but Napoli's the big one though. And Napoli, they have to win because Napoli are on 7 points, but because they have a -5 goal difference, that they 10 points probably won't be enough, may not be enough for them. I mean, obviously it depends on how the other results goes, but if they were to get 3 points from their 2 games and go on to 10 points, because they've got a -5 goal difference, that likely isn't enough. So they need probably 4 points from their 2 games. And in their last game, they play Chelsea at home after 3 days after playing Juventus away. So, and that's next week, by the way. So it's not a 2-week break. So yeah, Napoli with all their injuries, I think really Napoli need to win this game. If they don't win this, if they lose this, I think they're out. They're probably going to go out if they lose this game for the reasons I said. If they draw, then they have to beat Chelsea in their last game at home, which is not going to be easy. Chelsea going for the top 8 as well. So yeah, big game for Napoli here. Juventus also, Juventus are on 9 points, so they need 2 points to be absolutely certain. 1 point might even be enough because of their goal difference, but they need 2 points for certain. So they just need to win this game, Juventus, and just clinch their spot in the top 24. They're not going to get in the top 8. But Atalanta are the ones that have got really big opportunity because they're 5th with 13 points. And they play Athletic Bilbao. So if they win this, they can virtually be on the cusp of a top 8 place because they'll be on 16 points. That might even be enough to clinch them. But if they get 4 points for certainty of a top 8 place. So yeah, Atalanta are in a good opportunity here. They can also help Serie A.
Yeah, absolutely can.
Because Athletic Bilbao will be out of Europe, Europe if they lose this game. So if Atalanta can win this game, then that's good for Serie A because the chances of getting 5th spot will go up as well. And that's another reason why we need Napoli and Juventus to go through. Because it boosts our chances of getting the 5th spot. And that might be important even for like a Juventus. Juventus need to cheer on Napoli. So all those Juventus fans that will be cheering on Napoli to go out because that's what, some Serie A fans do. They think it's smart and clever to cheer against the Italian teams in Europe. Well, you're a turkey voting for Christmas if you do that. So yeah, we need all our Italian teams to win. And as for Europa League, Roma and Bologna we need to get 6 points from the last 2 games to try and get in that top 8 or to secure that top 8.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Atalanta thing is really important, not just for Serie A, but also for Atalanta because they're probably not going to be in the Champions League next season. And so it's really important for them to go far and try to get as much money as possible so that they can keep their big stars. I love that they bought Raspadori. I think that's brilliant. Smart signing. He'll do well. And given that they're almost certain to miss the Champions League next season, it's very important for them to get to the round of 16, maybe get a favorable draw, reach the quarterfinal, and that guarantees them lots of money, which is great for a small club like Atalanta. As for Napoli and Juve, like everything you said, we need them to win these games to just secure even if they have to play the playoff round as well. And given that, hopefully Fiorentina go far. You got the teams in the Europa League as well. We need Italy to do well here. We need all Italian teams to get to the knockout stages. Preferably all of them get to a quarterfinal minimum, and try to that way, impose themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's move on to Baggio, Premface, and Serie AS of the week. So then, Nima, really sad news of the last week. The passing of Rocco Commisso, the Fiorentina president. Really, really sad news. Yeah, he's done so much, hasn't he, for Fiorentina, his legacy at Fiorentina, and for Italian football. And I've never met the guy, but people that I know that knew him or that worked with him all said, what a great person he was, and
he was old school.
businessman.
He was a really old school character. He was born in 1949, came in Calabria. He came to New York and the United States as a 12-year-old, and there's photos of him when he was a kid, on the street corner trying to make a couple of bucks, shining shoes and stuff like that. And it's like it's almost like his life story and that era of the Italian American immigrant from the south of Italy coming to the new world and trying to make a life for themselves, and the way that he kind of carried himself, and it was just it was like, it literally was like a film. His entire life story, and he was very, very grounded and down to earth. He wasn't a snob.
No, that's what I liked about him. That's what I liked about him.
He was very authentic, very genuine.
I saw an interview with him a few years ago where he said throughout his career as his life as a businessman, he says he'd never ever laid off workers. He says he would always rather miss out on an extra €1 million or $1 million rather than have to lay off workers. So if that was actually the case, I mean that's amazing, because you don't get enough of that doesn't happen very often. Let's say that. But I do.
He never changed.
He was a man of principle. He was a principled person, and we saw that. His frustrations with Italian football when he was trying to build the new Fiorentina stadium, and all the hoops and the obstacles that he had to go across because of the way Italian culture and bureaucracy is. And he wasn't.
But the way that he kind of embodied this entrepreneurial sense of the North American entrepreneurial sense of immigrants coming to North America and having an entrepreneurial spirit and making a better life for themselves and thinking outside the box and all of that. It's like he embodied that. He belonged to that era, and he never changed who he was. I loved when he was a guy from Bronx. Like I mean, like the way that I remember that an interview that where he spoke. The slang that they do, this Southern Italian English slang, which you found on the East Coast of North America and Canada and the United States, where in an interview he said, "Ti faccio una jobba du Bronx." So, if you talk shit to me, I'll do a job on you like they do in the Bronx.
Brilliant.
And, stuff like that is just unbelievable. And he was very authentic. He was who he was. And he never apologized for that. And he was an entrepreneurial guy. I mean, Viola Park is unbelievable what he's done there. And this, he was not very diplomatic. You can't come in to Florence, a city that used to run the world, and say that one thing they're proud of, the architect that is the Artemio Franchi, and say it's a piece of shit, which he said. It was a shithole. You don't win friends doing that. But that's just the character he was. And I loved, some of the quotes he gave when he gives yellow cards and red cards to journalists during press conferences if he felt they were disrespectful. He was quite a character, and it's we're gonna miss him. He was a character in Italian football, and we're gonna miss him.
Yeah, we are, and it's just Fiorentina they just can't catch a break. I mean, it feels like I don't want to make light of this, but it feels like Fiorentina, that club is cursed. It feels like someone's put a hex on that club.
Astori, Joe Barone, Rocco Commisso, Eduardo Bove, although he survived. I mean, it's non-stop. You really, really feel for them. The hell that they've been through the last few years is just surreal, and you wish them the best. They don't deserve this. I hope that this can unite them to get out of the relegation battle, and I hope that they can win the Conference League.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise, and they're playing well now. This was a big win against Bologna. It was the perfect commemoration. It was very moving, the scenes before Mandragora, when he scored, he held up Rocco Commisso's shirt. This was lovely to see Fiorentina win this game in honor of Rocco Commisso, and now move out of the relegation zone, and they're in good form. And let's hope they can go from strength to strength and move up the table and survive, because Serie A needs Fiorentina, and Fiorentina deserve something with the hell that they've gone through over the last few years. It does feel like a curse. It feels like like the Kennedy. Like with the Kennedys, that they've got this kind of curse over the Kennedys, that it's incredible. Like, when is it going to stop? But
you don't begrudge them to have a successful season. Just give them some calm, because it's been difficult.
It would be nice to see them win the Conference League. They've been very close, haven't they? Like, so many lost finals in recent years as well. Let's see that. Let's everybody come together and make them the neutrals team. Right, Premface of the week. Nima, you have to take this one.
We were sent this from one of our listeners. He DM'd me this on Instagram, and I just couldn't stop laughing, because I had to double check if this is real. But apparently this is a real publication. It's called the Batuta Advocate. They describe themselves as Australia's oldest and favorite newspaper. And they published an article called No Brainer. It says the hottest name in Australian footballing world has this week been implored to think long and hard about a big decision looming in his future. Antonio Arena, the man gracing many corners of Australian sporting social media for his first goal for Roma with his first touch, is now set to be at the center of a tug of war for his national allegiance. At 16 years and 11 months and 3 days, Arena was an 80th minute substitute for the Serie A side Roma, and inside 2 minutes headed the ball past the keeper and sent Olimpico wild. They failed to mention this was in the Coppa Italia against Torino, which Roma lost. They think it's in the Serie A. Anyway, it says, and then here it starts. While, of course, the Italians are just assuming the young man would nominate to play for the Azzurri, which they've misspelt with one R, it's hoped Antonio will defer to the green and gold. Born and raised in Sydney, Arena came through the Marconi Stallions and Western Sydney Wanderers Academy before heading off to Italy. And while Italy arguably have a slightly more decorated footballing history, including stealing the World Cup off us in 2006, the current ability of Australia to make World Cups is believed to be a big factor in where he lands. The head of Football Australia has apparently invited Arena to meeting at Bar Italia in Leichhardt. And like any good elder statesman looking after talented young fellas, who aren't 18 yet, has informed him he'll sort a couple of tins for him. Mate, the Italians seem to like making World Cups as much as dominoes these days, laughed the boss of FA. If Antonio wants to shine on the big stage, he needs to come back down under.
Aussies are so butthurt over that penalty, that Grosso penalty. They never go on it. They're like the English.
Stonewall penalty. Don't care what anyone says. Stonewall penalty. I love that they're so.
You know what? These moaners never mention. They probably don't even realize. I was at that game, right? I was at that match, right?
I remember that game.
I even had Australians after the game that were starting on me. They called me Pom because I was speaking English. A pom is like what Australians call the English. It's they insult the English. They call them poms, or pommies, or poms, or something. And these Aussies started on me and my friend after the game. We nearly got into a fight with them. Basically, they were like, "Grosso, he dived," Anyway,
Grande Grosso.
What they never mention is that Marco Materazzi got sent off in that game for nothing. That was one of the most disgraceful decisions of the whole World Cup. He got sent off for apparently for a professional foul early in the second half. It wasn't a professional foul. He wasn't the last man. It wasn't anything more than a yellow card at the very most. And Italy had to play with 10 men for the whole of the second half and potentially for extra time because of that. Up until that point, Australia had barely got out of their own half. Italy were completely dominant. There's no doubt Italy were going to win the game. But because of a shocking refereeing decision, Italy had to suffer with 10 men. And even despite playing with 10 men, Australia didn't create a single chance in the whole game. Nor did Italy really that much, to be fair, until the penalty. Italy got a bit of luck that they got that penalty because it was deserved, but if it had gone to extra time, playing with 10 men in extra time, you're taking a risk. Of course you are with 10 men. But they failed to mention that the only reason why they were still in that game was because Marco Materazzi got sent off for a disgusting refereeing decision. So everyone just shut up about the penalty.
Exactly.
If it wasn't for the Materazzi thing, that game would have been over by then. So
Italy battered Australia before that red card. And they dominated completely. Luca Toni was so good in that first half. He was so close to scoring many times. And I love the way that R.I.P handled that game. I mean, shut them down and then brings on Totti as we're approaching the 70th, 80th minute, and then push everything forward in the 89th minute. And then Grosso gets the penalty, and then Totti scores, and Caressa's famous commentary is now. I got to be honest with you. The Germany game, the semi-final is probably the best game of international football I've seen in the last 20 years. But that game, the way that R.I.P handles that situation is, for me, vintage Italian coaches at their best. When they're smarter, when they read and interpret the game, and the players are all on board. I love that game for the way that it was handled. I love it. Absolutely love it. And Totti, I think for me, when Italy win, the way that Italy win that game, that lays the groundwork for them winning the World Cup, because then they started believing in themselves, and they knew that they had match winners in every area of the pitch, from Buffon to Cannavaro to Pirlo to Totti to Toni, etc. And that the foundation was laid there, and that is a penalty. I don't care what anyone says. You can't go lunging into the
Australians just need to just get over it and shut up. Seriously, just celebrate your Ashes win against England in a sport that only the British Empire plays. Just like nobody, like just shut up. Seriously, like honestly, like they don't go on and on about it. I mean, seriously, I'm glad. Talking about jingles, I'm glad I stopped my friend Giuseppe from watching the penalty, because that's the only reason.
Oh, here we go again. The guy whose World Cup you ruined. Poor Giuseppe. You ruined the World Cup for him. Ruined it.
For those who don't know, I watched every game at that World Cup with my friend Giuseppe. We went to every single game in Germany, except for the final. We didn't get tickets for the final. And starting off in the Czech Republic game, Italy had a corner, and I said to Giuseppe, "Don't watch it, and we'll score." So he turned around, didn't watch it, and Materazzi headed it in and scored. The next game, when we got the penalty, I said to Giuseppe, "You can't watch it, man. You can't watch it. Otherwise, he's gonna miss." So he didn't watch it, and we scored. And then in the semi-final against Germany, when we had a corner at the end, when Grosso scored, I turned around to him and I said to him, "Come on, Giuseppe, turn around. We might score here if you turn around."
You're a terrorist.
He turned around
and
didn't watch it, and Grosso scored. So 3 goals in the tournament were thanks to me. Like Italy should thank
it had nothing to do. You just ruined the World Cup for Giuseppe.
Every Italian should thank me that we won that World Cup, because 3 of the goals were scored because of...
You ruined the World Cup for Giuseppe because you're a terrorist who believes in this superstitious nonsense. And it's so infuriating. It's the only time we actually have an argument is when you try to do that shit to me. And I hate that because it just drives me crazy, because it's not true. It doesn't exist. It's just, No, this Neapolitan witchcraft nonsense needs to stop. Like, you need to stop terrorizing people with that.
I still blame you for us losing to North Macedonia.
Oh, see, this is what I mean. There's no such thing.
I messaged Nima. I messaged Nima after 60 minutes of the Italy versus North Macedonia. It was still 0-0. I said, "Nima, please, I beg you, please say that North Macedonia are going to win, otherwise Italy's going to go out." And he refused to do it. He goes, "No, I'm not doing it."
It's stupid. Like, it doesn't, shit like that doesn't exist. You need to stop that.
Right, Serie A.
Your Neapolitan witchcraft beliefs need to stop. It doesn't exist. It doesn't belong in 2026.
Yeah. Right. Serie AS of the week.
I don't even know. So RAI, the Italian public broadcaster, like the Italian version of BBC, their newscast.
Let me present this because I think this has to go on social. This is absolute gold. It really is. I mean, this is really Premface and Serie AS of the week combined, isn't it? This is absolutely fantastic. So, obviously, everybody knows what's going on in Iran at the moment. Italian TV presented an image from the 1990 cult mob movie Goodfellas as a genuine image of an Iranian family before the Islamic Revolution. Explain exactly what happened there, because this is amazing.
It's basically on RAI, which is the Italian public broadcaster, their BBC, and it's a newscast, and they're reporting. They have this thing in Italian media, whether it's sports or news or whatever, where they like to go to the people online, and they don't do any research, and they just show anything that pops up on their feed. And so this was an Italian guy who, I don't know if he's part of Roma Twitter, but he might as well be, because I've seen some connections with the Violi Nation guys. And they were just taking the piss and hoaxing, putting it up there as, and this is, it's the scene, the photograph of Goodfellas when they're showing like that scene in the movie where it's photos of De Niro, Ray Liotta, where they're basically, showing when they're taking pictures of their children growing up and stuff.
They're holding up a kid, aren't they? I think it might be Ray Liotta's kid in the movie.
Yeah,
if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they're holding up the kid, and yeah.
And they pass it off as Iran before the revolution, 1939, and it's like, and that talking point in and of itself is a meme. But the fact that they do it, that they fall for it as well, is just it's Goodfellas. It's not an obscure independent film.
No, it's one of the greatest. It's one of the greatest movies of all time. Like
it's one of Scorsese's. It's one of Scorsese's greatest ever films.
It's Robert De Niro, one of the most famous actors of all time.
In the photo, and it's like, oh.
They also clearly don't look Iranian as well. Like, everybody looking at Nima now. That's what an Iranian looks like. Robert De Niro does not look Iranian. Ray Liotta.
Well, actually, I actually have a friend who is Iranian. Looks exactly like Robert De Niro. So it's I'm just saying, like, it's crazy. But yeah, no, this is just.
That was it was very, very funny. I have to say, I laughed a lot when I saw that.
Same.
Yeah. RAI, BBC, you can trust your state broadcaster. See, they're the fact check. They verify. BBC verify. Was it BBC verify?
Yeah.
Some of the stuff.
Don't look into.
Last week,
it's like
last week the top BBC journalist was lying on the ground to do it in. I think it was in Ukraine. Did you see that one?
That's an old. This
is a new one. This is a new one. That was a woman.
Another one.
You're thinking of the American one, aren't you? This was.
No, I'm not thinking of her. I'm thinking about the guy who says he's in a war and there's a woman with her groceries walking.
Oh, yeah, maybe it's an old one. Yeah, Jeremy Bowen. Yeah, that was very, very funny. So he's lying down and he's like, "We're in the war. We're in the middle of a battle here, and it's very, very tense. There's shelling. You can see there's gunfire coming from both sides, and then a woman just casually walks with her groceries like that. It's brilliant.
And she's not. We're talking like someone's grandmother. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's not. Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's literally the Wizard of Oz, where they don't look behind the curtain at this point. It's embarrassing.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, really
unbelievable, embarrassing.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Right. Let's leave it at that. We'll be back on later in the week for Q&A. And Nima, I think you're going to be doing a post match on Inter Arsenal. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm going to be doing a post match on Inter Arsenal for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Right, let's leave it at that. Hope you enjoy the show. I have to say that was one of my favourite segments when Nima went all out on shitty shatter. I thought that was absolutely fantastic.
Sick of him.
That's definitely going on social. We need to make that viral for sure. Right,
it's hilarious because I can't stand Barcelona, and just because people misunderstood our social clip of World 11 2006 to World versus World 11 2026, and people seriously think that I think Pedri's a better footballer than Zidane when I was comparing the seasons. And they'll he's got to be a Barcelona fan, and I was laughing because if you know me, you know I have no love lost for Barcelona at all, and it goes down to my childhood. Despise them. So yeah,
I think we've gathered that. We've gathered that by now, that you despise Barcelona.
But equally, look, that's personal preference, but equally, it's my opinion that 2008-2009 Barcelona Guardiola is probably the best club team of all time. Like that first season, they were, I've never seen anything like it. They were just unstoppable. Yes, and we all know what happened in the semi-final against Chelsea, but if you look at the entirety of that season, unbelievable.
Yeah, I wonder why. Yeah, but yeah, agreed. Yeah, after Milan though, for me, Milan 89-90 will always be number one.
Milan, Sacchi, and Guardiola.
Better era of football as well. But yeah, they're definitely top two or top three for sure. If we okay. Oh, just before we go, one other thing. For those of you that are listening, please do subscribe to us on YouTube, because we have we've got a deal with the related to the Serie A, where we're actually now able to show footage from the Serie A. So we're going to be now starting to produce videos, highlights videos. We put out a couple already. One on Marco Palestra. It's kind of like showing some of his best skills and dribbles and assists. We've done one on Federico Chiesa's best moments at Juventus. We've basically got access to the footage, and we're going to be starting to produce kind of like more videos now going forward. So do subscribe to us on YouTube, because we're going to. There will be producing some content over the next months, which I think you guys. We've also got access to some archive footage as well. So we're planning to in time start producing some footage of like historic stuff. Maradona and Brazilian Ronaldo and Zidane and Del Piero, like footage from the best of them from Serie A. So yeah, please do subscribe to us on YouTube, and you can see some of that footage in time. Okay,
right.
Yeah, let's leave it at that. See you later in the week. Until then, ciao, ciao.